Nobody expected this sudden shift in the Formula One paddock, but here we are. George Russell, once seen as Mercedes' rising star, is now under the spotlight for entirely different reasons. There's serious uncertainty surrounding his spot in the team, and that's not just coming from outside voices. It's been fueled by none other than team boss Toto Wolff and even Russell himself. The silence from Mercedes about extending his deal says more than any formal announcement could. The question on everyone's mind, could Max Verstappen really take his seat? Yes, it sounds dramatic, but things are lining up in a way that makes it feel possible. Verstappen's future at Red Bull is anything but locked down. Tension inside the team, ongoing internal issues, and Max's own hunger for consistent success have made people wonder, is he looking for a way out? And if so, is Mercedes the destination? George Russell is fully aware of the conversations taking place behind the scenes. Recently, he addressed the situation in a calm but clear way. He acknowledged the talk about potential changes, and made it known that he's willing to share the garage with anyone. He said it doesn't bother him, at least not publicly. His words were firm. I'm happy to be teammates with anyone. There are rumors, yes, but from my side, I plan to stay here. Still, despite Russell's confidence, things don't look too steady. The speculation continues, and Toto hasn't exactly ruled out a move for Max, while Verstappen stated that there have been no new developments beyond what the media already knows. There's a feeling among fans and insiders alike something is shifting, and fast. Right now, Russell finds himself in an uncomfortable place, and a lot of that pressure stems directly from Verstappen's uncertain future. Max wants to win, that's no secret, and he's proven that he'll make bold moves to stay on top. With Red Bull facing some serious internal issues and inconsistencies, staying loyal to the team might not be his top priority anymore. That reality casts a long shadow over Russell's current situation at Mercedes. Toto Wolff hasn't denied that conversations with Max have taken place. In fact, he's left the door open just wide enough for everyone to start connecting the dots. Russell may be publicly unfazed, but privately, he has to be thinking about what comes next. His recent statements may sound calm, but behind them is the growing tension of a driver who knows the ground beneath him. It isn't stable anymore, and just when fans thought things couldn't get more uncertain, another voice stepped in. Zach Brown. His statement, "Where there's smoke, there's fire," added more fuel to the rumors. He didn't name names, but it was obvious who he was referring to. When team principals from rival camps begin commenting, it's no longer just idle gossip. Let's be honest, if Verstappen truly wants out of Red Bull, Mercedes won't be able to ignore that, even if Russell has been loyal, consistent, and deeply involved with the team for years, including his time at Williams. There's only so much sentimentality in Formula One. Performance speaks louder. Prestige attracts action, and Max brings both. Wolff also has to think about the long game. A driver like Verstappen doesn't show up on the market every day, and even if he doesn't switch teams immediately, the possibility of a move in 2027 remains very real. That kind of opportunity doesn't wait forever. As the chatter swells, F1 pundits are weighing in and nobody is shying away from speculating about Russell's next move. Veteran commentator Martin Brundle dropped a telling remark. George has started reaching out to other teams. He's making calls, sounding out potential seats for 2026 and beyond. That's a smart strategy if your future at your current outfit is uncertain, but it also sends a clear message. Russell is hedging his bets. Think about that for a moment. This is a driver who rose through Mercedes junior ranks, cut his teeth at Williams, and then stepped into the Brackley garage as a direct replacement for Valtteri Bottas. He assumed the role of team leader after Lewis Hamilton's departure. He's been part of the family since 2019, and his development has always been steered by Mercedes' broader vision. Yet here he is, tapping up rival squads just in case the seat next to Lewis Hamilton's old number isn't his for much longer. One of the most obvious options is Aston Martin. Reports suggest that Lawrence Stroll's team has been in touch. Curious to know if Russell would consider a switch? On paper, it could be a promising home. Aston Martin is on an upward trajectory, backed by fresh investment. The Honda Power Unit deal kicking in, and state-of-the-art facilities at Silverstone being built. If they can marry that potential with a driver of Russell's caliber, they could soon challenge at the front. Of course, there's the question of chemistry. Aston Martin's lineup currently features Fernando Alonso, whose experience and status bring undeniable value. Would the team principal risk disrupting that balance? Perhaps Alonso shifts into an ambassadorial role once he decides to hang up his helmet, an outcome that has its own uncertainties. But if that door opens, Russell could step in and establish himself as a new centerpiece of the team. Then there's Red Bull. Despite Russell's denials, whispers persist that Christian Horner has always held a soft spot for the young Brits. After all, Russell demonstrated his talent week in and week out at Williams, often outperforming machinery that wasn't fit for podium battles. Could a mid-season switch even be conceivable? Unlikely under current regulations, but for 2027, nothing is off the table. If Max does leave, Red Bull might look to bolster their lineup quickly, and George would be an obvious candidate. Meanwhile, Mercedes' own long-term plans are coming into focus. They've earmarked another junior driver, Dennis Hauger, to rise through their academy. They're also keeping an eye on entry-level prospects like Dino Begay. If Toto Wolff and the board decide to groom fresh talent, that could edge Russell out regardless of how many seasons he's already delivered. For George, it's a delicate balancing act. He wants to show faith in the Silver Arrows, but he must also protect his career. With a contract only through the end of this year, time is not on his side. Every statement he makes, every call he places, will be scrutinized by fans and executives alike. Let's break down what George Russell truly has on the table, because staying at Mercedes might not be as straightforward as it once seemed. On one hand, he's built a reputation there. He knows the engineers, understands the systems, and already carries the weight of leadership within the team. That kind of familiarity is rare in Formula One. It doesn't develop overnight, but familiarity doesn't guarantee safety, not when there are talks of Max Verstappen arriving, and young talents like Kimi Antonelli waiting in the wings. Antonelli's name is coming up more often these days. He's young, fast, and a product of Mercedes' long-term plan. The team sees him as a future star, and if Toto Wolff decides to make him a full-time driver in 2026, it could directly impact Russell's place in the squad. And this isn't just about performance, it's also about timing and potential. The younger a driver starts, the more years the team gets to mold and extract value from them. Russell's advantage, however, lies in his current status. He's not just another name on the grid. He's held his own against some of the best drivers in the sport and kept pushing through rough patches. Remember, he spent 3 long seasons at Williams, fighting for every single point in a car that simply couldn't keep up. That experience made him tougher, sharper, and more patient than many of his peers. Another point worth noting is how close he's come to Verstappen in the current drivers' standings. With Mercedes making steady progress and their car performance slowly catching up to Red Bull's, Russell is quietly climbing the table. That alone should give the team a reason to think twice before rushing to replace him. Sure, Max might be more decorated, but George is showing that he's not far behind when given the right equipment. There's also the personal drive that Russell brings to the table. Unlike Verstappen, who has openly stated that he doesn't see himself racing well into his late 30s or 40s, George seems like the kind of driver who's here for the long haul. He wants to build something meaningful with a team, not just bounce from one peak to another. That loyalty and vision matter when building a team around a driver for the next decade. But again, Mercedes can't afford to ignore the risk. If they bring in Verstappen and he decides to retire just a few years down the road, that's a gamble that could backfire massively. They might lose Russell now and then scramble later to replace Max, only to realize they gave up long-term stability for short-term glory. It's a classic dilemma. Do you go for the big name, or do you invest in the one already proving his worth from inside your own garage? Carlos Sainz recently weighed in on the whole situation, and what he said reflects the reality most fans don't get to see. According to Sainz, the uncertainty surrounding George Russell's seat isn't just media talk, it's real. And it affects more than just George. It ripples through the entire garage. The engineers, the mechanics, the strategists, everyone feels the tension. Sainz put it simply: when there's noise around your future, no matter how much you try to ignore it, it gets to you. That statement hits hard because it pulls back the curtain on how mentally exhausting the sport can be when your future hangs in the balance. Sainz went on to say that Russell is handling things well, considering the pressure. His performance this season proves that, even with all the whispers and uncertainty, he's still putting in strong results. That kind of mental strength counts for a lot, and it shows that Russell isn't folding under the weight, he's rising through it. Still, this isn't the ideal setup for any driver who wants to perform at their peak. Trust and stability are crucial in Formula One. Without them, even the most talented drivers can get thrown off course. So, where can George go if Mercedes does decide to move forward without him? Aston Martin is a possible destination. The team has made big investments lately, bringing in Honda, strengthening their factory, and reportedly eyeing Adrian Newey. All signs point to a team that's preparing for serious contention. Fernando Alonso might retire soon, and Lance Stroll hasn't shown he's capable of leading a championship charge. That opens a clear path for Russell, who could bring experience, speed, and credibility to the team. And then there's Red Bull. Yes, the very team Verstappen may be looking to leave. Red Bull's leadership has already shown interest in Russell before. Christian Horner has even admitted that it would be foolish not to consider him. Although George has publicly denied any conversations, that doesn't mean nothing is happening behind the scenes. In F1, denials often mask negotiations already in motion. At the end of the day, George Russell is in a tight spot, but he isn't out of options. Whether he stays with Mercedes, moves to Aston Martin, or even surprises everyone by heading to Red Bull, one thing is clear: he's too talented to be left without a seat. The bigger question isn't whether he'll be on the grid in 2026. The real question is, which team will trust him enough to lead their future? Whatever happens, the months ahead will be crucial not just for Russell, but for the balance of power in Formula One. Thanks for watching. Tell us in the comments, should Mercedes stick with George Russell, or is it time to bring in a new face?